families in these crazy times. Yeah, I think we can just hope that we can get back to normal as soon as possible. Thanks for the time today to join the first Geospatial Monitoring Power Hour. Today's topic is turn your total station into a 24/7 measuring solution. So before we start, I'd like to introduce myself and Eric as well. So my name is Christian Abenschein. I'm based out of Munich in Germany. My background is surveying and geomatics. I graduated in 2009 and I joined Trimble back in 2011. The biggest part within Trimble, so I've been working as product manager. I was primarily responsible for the real-time monitoring software Trimble 4D Control, and I still am responsible for it. And so in the meanwhile, I'm also looking after the monitoring app of Trimble Access. And yeah, I'm really happy to introduce this topic to you today. Today I have a co-presenter, Eric Schnapp. And Eric, maybe you can also introduce yourself, please.
Sure, no worries at all. I'm Eric, and I'm a surveyor from Canada. I started off in construction surveying, quantity surveys, moved over to legal, hopped across the pond to do some mobile laser scanning, and then found myself at Trimble about almost 3 years ago now. So I've been working as a technical support engineer in the sort of monitoring field. And yeah, that's about my story.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. All right, then let's have a look on today's agenda. So at first, I will start with some information on manual monitoring before I jump into the automated monitoring part. So I will show you, or I will give you some examples on where an automated monitoring system is used, why it is beneficial, and we will also have a look on the system components of a real-time monitoring system. The biggest part of this demo or of this webinar will be a live demo, a live demonstration. So we will get to this one in a minute. And towards the end, I will give you some information on resources you can use and also an outlook on the webinar series. At the end, we will still have time for your questions. So maybe that's something I should mention here. So if you have any questions during the webinar, please just type them in the chat window and we will address them as we go. In case we should not get to your question, we will make sure that we address them as soon as possible and get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, so manual monitoring. What does it mean, manual monitoring? I guess a lot of you have already gained quite some experience with monitoring. So when you go out to the field on a regular interval, you take your measurements and then you go back to the office and do some data analysis. So this is exactly what I mean with manual monitoring. For that purpose, you would probably use Trimble Access next to your total station. You would perform your initial site setup, meaning you would add your backside and your foresight points, and you do your on scheduler configuration. And this is something you repeat in a frequent interval. And yeah, so but I think the data analysis takes place once you're back in the office. So a lot of people use Microsoft Excel, for example. So you can compare the data over time, and you can also create charts, as you can see it here on the slide. So manual monitoring might be the way to go, of course. So no doubt about that. It always depends on the project requirements. Next to manual monitoring, there are definitely a lot of projects out there where a permanently installed automated monitoring system is a must-have. So this can be about an ongoing construction site, like you can see it here on the left side, or about a slope monitoring system. And I mean, the big advantage of an automated monitoring system is that on-site visits become obsolete. So there's no need anymore to go out there like once a week or once a month. And as you can imagine, this saves time and money. Apart from that, an automated system also allows you to do analysis on a large set of data. And you can automatically create reports, for example. But I would say the main advantage of an automated monitoring system is the capability of real-time alarming. So in case something moves, you will be informed immediately, and this will allow you to take informed decisions in a timely manner. So let's have a look on the system components of an automated monitoring system. So typically there is some infrastructure that is monitored. That it can be a building, a dam, for example, a bridge. And to monitor this infrastructure, different sensor types are used. So very common are total stations and prisms, but it is also about GNSS receivers and geotechnical sensors. Once the sensors are deployed and installed in the field, the sensor delivers its data to our real-time monitoring software, Trimble 4D Control, or short T4D. T4D consists of two components. The backend, I'd say the backend is called T4D server. So in T4D server, you do the configuration, the data processing, and also the data management. On the other side, you also have a very powerful web application where you can do nice data visualizations, where you can also do reports or create reports, where you can set up alarm conditions. And yeah, so T4D server and T4D web together is Trimble 4D Control. Today's focus is on the optical sensor part, so on the total station basically. And Eric and I will show you in a minute how easy it is to set up a total station for automated monitoring, or let's say so that it fits into this picture here. Okay, so if you think about the communication between the hardware and the software, I mean, this has always been a challenge. And this also, and in particular, applies to monitoring as well. So in order to ensure an uninterrupted and continued data flow, we provide a unique solution in this context, and this is the Setup M1. The Setup M1 is really designed to work with Trimble 4D Control. It provides the data that is needed for real-time monitoring. And the big advantage of the Setup M1 is that it can control the total station. It has a large onboard memory, and these features allow the Setup M1 and allow us to ensure that there is no loss of data in case of a communication outage. So this is the big benefit of the Setup M1. So although there is also an Ethernet connection supported, the communication between the Setup M1 and Trimble 4D Control is typically established via a cellular connection. The Setup M1 offers a SIM card slot on the backside of the device. So here you see you just need to detach some screws, and then you are able to insert a SIM card. And there is also a free communication service available called IST Connect that further supports this way of communication. And in our demo in a second, we will also use a Setup M1 unit that has a SIM card in it and that we have registered with IST Connect. All right, so before we start with our demo, this image here shows the entire setup again. So it is really simple. There are only two cables required. One is the power supply for the setup M1, and the setup M1 in turn also powers the total station. So this is one cable, and the second cable is the connection between the setup M1 and the total station. That's it. That's all you need. And with that, yeah, I would like to start our demo in a second. Maybe Michael, maybe now it's a good point in time. Maybe you can poll the first question, because we are really interested in knowing who is doing automated monitoring and who is doing campaign-based monitoring, as we also refer to for manual monitoring. All right. Okay, so feedback is coming in. Okay, so I can see still coming in. Yeah, it's like we have at least 30–35% doing manual monitoring, campaign-based monitoring, as I said. But there is also 20% doing real-time monitoring. Yeah, and of course, people are doing both. And there is a small number as well who does not do monitoring at all today. And yeah, so thanks for that feedback. And with that, again, I would like to start with our demo. So let me now jump into the web interface of the setup M1. So this is something I need to mention. So the setup M1 has a very nice web interface, as you can see here. And for those of you who are familiar with the setup M1, so what you see here, this is really a new and reworked web interface. This will be available shortly when we release a new firmware version. And another note, the setup M1, which I'm about to connect now, is not located next to me. It's not physically next to me. The setup M1 is at Eric's place. So due to the current Corona situation, both Eric and I, we are also working from home, and the setup M1 unit is really located next to Eric. But as I mentioned earlier, I have registered this setup M1 with the IST Connect service. And this is why I can easily connect to it using my browser. The URL consists of the serial number of the setup M1 unit.istconnect.com. And yeah, of course, the web interface is secured. That is why I must provide my user credentials. So, and then I can log in.
It'd be good to mention now, I think, that since this is a pre-registered unit with the IST Connect service, this is why we already have a username and password for it. Normally, you would be administered admin and M1 as your default passwords to come in. Sort of the recommended to be changed. So.
Exactly. Thanks for that feedback, or for that comment, Eric. Right. So we have registered with IST Connect, and we can use the credentials to log in. So once I'm connected, you see now the station homepage. So you see there are a couple of buttons available, and we will use quite a few of them in the next minutes. So I would like to start from scratch, basically. You see down here, there is already a current project that is called Nova Scotia. But for our demo purposes, I will just create a completely fresh new project. For that purpose, I click on Project down here, and then this window will open up. You see there is a drop-down menu. It says Create Project, and now I will just name my project. I will name it Webinar Demo. Okay. The total station name, we are using S9 instrument. It's an S9, so I will just say S9 here as well. And I leave the height with 0 because we don't use any coordinates during our demo, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now I can create this project here, and yeah, so now you also see down here, current project is not Nova Scotia anymore. Now it says webinar demo. And if I click here on the targets button, so this should be empty, of course, because it is really a fresh new project. So we have not added any points here. And yeah, it says no targets for the current project, which is correct. And this is something we would like to change now. So I need Eric's help here. For that purpose, I go to.
I've already pre-aligned for you there, Christian, on the first target. But before we do that, I think we should also head to the measuring mode to make sure that we're taking the targets at the right mode.
Yes, I will go to the measure mode. So that's a good point, because here are different measure modes available. It says manual, auto log, direct reflex, and fine log. And I mean, manual means it doesn't track the target basically. Direct reflex shouldn't be an option for us because we use Prism, so there is no need why I should select direct reflex. In my example, I will simply select fine log, because there is an automatic fallback to auto log in case we have short distances. So I will just ensure fine log is selected, and I click on apply. And with that, I can now go ahead and add my targets. To add a new target, I must say measure add. I need to click on this button down here on the bottom right corner of my window. And then a window opens up, and I first need to specify the target name. As it is the first target, I will just say target 1. And the height and the constant, it's the same, the Prism constant, it's the same principle as I said earlier. We don't use coordinates in our example, so that's why I'll just leave it with 0. Phase 1, phase 2 for every target, that's fine with me. And the measure mode says fine log. This is what I have just configured. So Eric, can you confirm that you have pointed the instrument to target number 1, to the target that we add now as a first target?
Yep, confirmed.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I click on measure.
No worries.
And now the total station measures to this first target. Should be a really small distance. Yeah, it's 4 meters, 30 centimeters, 36. And this is because I mean, the total station, same as the targets, they are basically in Eric's living room. So we did not expect big distances. Okay, with that.
My place just isn't that big.
Exactly. So so I will add this point to the project. So you see the spinning wheel still added, and I do the same for a second target. We're going to add 3 targets because this is the minimum. Otherwise, we cannot really continue with our demo. So the second target, same here. I will just call it target 2, height constant, the same, phase, measure mode, all is good. And Eric, could you please turn the total station now to the second target?
We're good to go.
Perfect. All right, so I click on measure again. And should be again a very small distance. Perfect, 5 meters, 30 centimeters. Excellent. So that makes sense. I add this to the project as well. And now we have added 2 targets already. And the 2 targets I could only add by the help of Eric, because Eric turned the instrument to the target. Now let me show you another nice feature of the Setup M1. Because if you use a total station with vision capability, you can also use a video stream in the web interface of the Setup M1, and you should now see in a second the video stream of the total station. So basically my total station at the moment is pointing towards the dartboard here, and you might recognize up here there is another prism. You see that here up there. So I can also do the following now. I can just click with my mouse on this target and the telescope will move accordingly. Okay, maybe I need to do it again. I click on this target again. You see it turning 2 and now it should move. Perfect. So it points to the target, and because I have configured fine log as a measure mode, it will log the target and then it measures it. When I go to measure and add again, what I will do now. So this is my third target. I will call this one target 3, height constant, everything the same. And yeah, just to be sure, I click measure again, and then it should measure to this target. Yeah, 6 meters, 84 centimeters, perfect. So I will also add this one to my project now, and this means we should now have basically 3 targets that are part of my project webinar demo. To verify this, I click on targets again down here. Perfect. So I can see my 3 targets, and yeah. So now if you think about Trimble Access, you might think that I now need to do the station setup as a next step. However, here with the setup M1, it's a bit a different approach. So the setup M1 now has the information how it can measure the targets, right? But the thing is that we will configure and we will specify the station setup at a later stage. So we will come to that in a second. Here, it's really only essential that the setup M1 knows the orientation, knows where the targets are, and it will then, later on you will see that, it will provide T4D with angle and distance measurements only. So there is no station setup calculation here on this side. This will be done on the T4D side of things. Again, we will get there in a second. This is as designed, this is perfectly fine, and that is why the only thing I still need to do is I need to check my scheduler settings here. You see there is a button, scheduler, and when I click on this button, you should see a couple of settings here. The phase order, F1, F2, phase 1, phase 2 for each target, that's fine. Set of rounds, as we only have like 1 hour, I leave it with 1 for the moment. And the round interval at the moment is set to 30 minutes. I will change this one to the minimum. I will say there should be 5 minutes, which means the total station turns to every target every 5 minutes. So it completes a round measurement every 5 minutes. There is another feature here, repeat missing targets, something you can enable. This is used, for example, if a target cannot be measured with the first attempt, like if there is a truck in between the line of sight, and then it's just repeated at the end of the round measurement. Days to measure, so for example, as it is pre-selected here, you could say, I'm only interested in my round measurements during the week from Monday to Friday, but not on a Saturday and on a Sunday, for example. Okay, so I click on save here, and then I can just start my monitoring progress. You see here, there is a big start button. I click on this one here. Do you want to start monitoring process? Yes, I would like to start it. And then you should see that the total station moves. So you should also see another camera view in a second. You see, so total station moves. And this is how you can kind of observe the status of your round measurement. But as we do not want to see Eric's entire living room, I click on targets now. And here we can also see the status on what's going on. You see on the right side, we have the spinning wheel right now. This means currently the total station measures to target number 2 in phase 2. And I mean, a green check mark means that everything was successful. And yeah, so there could also be a red X, that means something failed or the measurement could not be performed, but in our example, everything looks good. All right, so you see the first round measurement is now completed. The information is now stored on the setup M1, and with this, I can leave my setup M1 and a total station in the field. I can go back to the office and configure T4D. And yeah, with that, I would like to hand over now to Eric, because he will demonstrate to you the required steps on the T4D side of things. Eric, I will make you as a presenter now, and then hopefully we can see your screen in a second.
Okay, no worries at all.
As a presenter, yes. Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay,
Sounds good.
which screen are you seeing right now? Is the question.
That's the right one. We see T4D, the server UI. That's perfect.
Oh, that's good. Okay. This is my sort of local system where I have T4D installed. I currently have a few things in there: data receiver, terrestrial engine, and integrity monitor, because I'm using that for some testing here at home. So, and also for the end of this demo, just to give a few more examples, because we won't be able to actually show you how the data comes in, well, how the data is displayed, because we'll only probably have one point, so it's not very interesting to see a single point on a graph. So, to get started, you need to go over here to your tree pane here, and you insert a module by right-clicking on the actual T4D control server itself. And the first thing we're going to add is a data receiver, because we're going to try and create something which will then connect to, smaller, that will put itself to the setup M1. So first we need to add one, and we call this webinar demo, just for the sake of being consistent with what we've set up in our M1 already. And then we go into our incoming. So we're going to be using the setup M1 IST Connect file-based version. There are a few other versions available, but we're focusing today on the Connect file-based. We require a custom name, and that is actually the serial number of the unit. 17562. We are going to use a secure connection, as this is always required. We have our username and our password, which are also required. All right, and then you need to select a storage path. So myself, I just throw everything into the name of my actual setup. And we set our download interval. We're going to set that to 1 for our purposes today. Next step, general settings, require a mission name, just sort of a grouping of what is coming in or where it's located. So we're just going to call this one webinar demo right now. Oops, having all kinds of typing problems today. Webinar demo. You see the temperature, pressure, refraction coefficient, which we leave as default. Come around to the round settings, and for our purpose, we're going to use 1 round, simply for speed. And then we have alarm settings, which are, you can evaluate, data per round. And underneath we have some target integrity thresholds. And these are basically can be set custom for your individual project. In our case, because my living room isn't moving too much, we're just going to leave everything as it is for now. And then we say finish. So the next piece that's important is a terrestrial engine. Now, we need here to add, we need to add another module, the terrestrial engine itself. Find this here, and we will need to add one. I will also call this webinar demo, simply because that's what we're doing today. And in the general settings, we will see that you need to select a data collector or a data receiver. Because I already have the Nova Scotia data receiver in there, that you see as well, but we will then select the webinar demo. Sensors, we won't use those because there's actually a temperature sensor which comes on the setup M1, and the rest we will also leave as the default, even though we can set up alarm thresholds and H-stop thresholds. Okay. So we had a little error there. And I think it's because I've been practicing this so much, adding and removing. I'm just going to insert another one very quickly here, another terrestrial engine. Add it, and I'm going to call it webinar demo 2.
So maybe Eric, maybe while you're doing this step again, there is a question. So I was observing the questions pane here. I mean, there are several questions I see. So one of them is, for example, if you would also use the setup M1 if you do manual monitoring. And so this answer is quite simple. So the setup M1 is really intended to be used for a real-time automated monitoring system. So basically, if you do manual monitoring, you would rather use Trimble Access. So I think that answers the question.
Okay, so I was able to add another terrestrial engine there. Sorry about that. It was just the fact I had practiced this a few times. Now, the next step we need to do is to go to our data receiver, which is what's going to bring the information from the setup into T4D control server. The first thing we need to do is connect to the project which is running on the setup M1 beside me. So this takes a minute or so just to kind of figure out the connection, and then it goes and it searches through all the projects which are currently running on the setup M1.
Maybe it's worth to have a look on Eric's camera view, because you could see the image earlier on one of the slides. So in the background you really see the total station, and attached to the tripod there is the setup M1. So it's a really simple setup there, right? As we have it here in this video stream. Yeah, just see how it looks in reality.
Excellent. So we're going to use the webinar demo project, which came through. We say OK. The next step is we're going to set our download to active, and then we hit apply. So now that we've actually configured a few modules to process the data which is coming in and to receive the data, and we've created a connection between our data receiver and our setup M1, the next step is to perform a site setup. And this is done by right-clicking simply on the module and hitting site setup. The next step is simply to open the stream control, which is right here, and we are started. So what's happening now is we're just waiting for the data or a round to complete, and then data should be fed into the receiver here.
Yeah.
So
maybe Eric, until the data is coming in, maybe you can answer one question that was coming in just now. The question is from Chris, the asker. So you have just selected the setup M1 project. So what happens if which project do you need to select, or what happens if you select the wrong one? I think that's the question.
Well, I guess it depends on how long you want to wait afterwards. If you select the wrong one and you get to this state, you will just be sitting waiting for the incoming data, because it will not connect to the correct project on your setup M1. So good sign to tell you this, like you can make that small mistake of clicking the wrong one quickly while trying to do things, is if you're not getting any data coming in here after quite a while, then you've probably selected the wrong project for that one.
Okay. I think this is not a question, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on what is the difference between overwrite all and do not overwrite existing measurements, because this is some daily challenge we face today, and maybe you can explain the difference so that this is clear, the setting.
Okay, so the overwrite all, basically what we're doing now with the site setup is creating your reference points. Overwrite all overwrites everything that you've actually collected. So if you've done a site setup before, it overwrites everything which is there. So this isn't the case if you want to do a second site setup of your project and cancel everything that happened beforehand. Now, if you're, say, adding a target or two to it, you don't necessarily want to overwrite your entire site setup that you've done already. You just want to add a few targets to your project or your site setup, and you can include those by then selecting the do not overwrite the existing measurement. And this will then pull in just those points, and your reference points from the original site setup will stay solid. That's basically how that one would work.
Thanks, Eric.
That would work. Oh, no worries, no worries at all.
Now we have some data.
Exactly. So the targets have come in, the stream has closed. Now, the next thing to do is actually decide on what type of station setup you're going to do. Station setup, setup plus, resection. In our case, I'm going to use the station setup, just one target as a backsite. And we're going to select a backsite. So first off, the total station comes in, coordinates is 0, 0, 0. And I will select target number 3. All right, so at this point, we just wait for rounds to come in and fill up your data. I'm just going to click on this once it loads. Takes a little bit here.
Yeah.
Just give it a second. There we go. All right, so now when I click on the data receiver, we see we have no round measurements, and here you have like your round history of things which have come in. So as you can see, this has been displayed here before. I've used this once or twice. You have your reference measurement, which I was talking to before, and your basic total and station information. Now, if we go down to the terrestrial engine for it, which is your processing engine here, we shows here that, okay, processing data complete, gives us a history of the rounds which have come in, haven't been processed, and we can take a look also at residual history. So underneath that, we then have our integrity monitor, which then shows us a map of exactly what's going on in our field setup. So that's what we have here. We have our current displacements. Everything is right there. Here's our adjustments and displacement charts. Now, of course, as I was saying before, yeah, it's not very interesting to just see one small line and the slope distance chart. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to switch over to the integrity monitor project that had been running a little bit here. So this is my full living room setup. Current displacements, I've been kind of moving things around because I do some testing with it. Adjustments, and we'll take a look at what the charts look like. So here I'll just start with the setup of the actual project. So when I started, I was measuring it every 5 minutes just for a little bit there. So I'll just zoom into that area there, and you can kind of see the actual movement. So this is one of those things that you can then track along with your measurements and rounds. And I think at that point, yeah, those are the essentials for getting your 24/7 measuring solution up and running.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Eric.
Maybe
before we jump back to some more slides, so there is another question coming in from Marco Di Mauro. The question is, in a multiple total station scenario, is it possible to configure a network adjustment processing for automated systems? And maybe I can quickly answer that question. So,
sure.
so this pretty much yes. The answer is yes. You can set it up. So you have, in that example, you had a total station and a setup in one multiple times basically, and you would select in the terrestrial engine module. Maybe Eric, maybe you can quickly open the properties of the terrestrial engine module.
Okay. Do you see my screen, Christian?
Yeah, exactly. It's already open. Thank you.
Okay.
So in here, Marco, you can then select multiple data receiver modules. So you must imagine you have one data receiver module per total station, and in the terrestrial engine is basically doing the calculation of approximate coordinates, which is required for the following network adjustment that is done by the integrity monitor module, which is beneath it. So in the terrestrial engine real-time module, you would select all the data receiver modules that basically represent your total stations. So yes, this is possible. This is absolutely possible. I can also see maybe one more question at this stage. So there is one question about, there are a lot of questions, but I could see a question, what is the IP of the setup M1, if I understand that question correctly from Ali. So the IP of the total stage of the setup M1, sorry. So I mean, this is exactly the beauty of this IST Connect communication service, right? So IST Connect acts as a reverse proxy, and this is why you don't need a static IP address if you establish a cellular connection. You can simply type in your serial number.ist connect, and you can connect to the M1. So and this always stays the same. It's like a DIN DNS, if you will. All right.
I see another quick question there about using coordinates. If you can use known coordinates, and this is something that you can do. Yes, you. If you're bringing points into your setup, if you're not creating your job in your setup, because the setup does a default of 00 for your total station. Now you can still just set it up with your setup M1 with the 00, and then you go into your site setup area. And as you can see on the screen right now, the northing, easting, and the elevations were all set to 0. So all you need to do is actually click on the field, enter your actual coordinates in for that, and then bring it into the system you would like to use. But yeah, so this is possible to use your own coordinates.
And there is another question, maybe following this one you have just raised, Eric, from Leonel. I can see. So do you have? It's about. If we have a baseline, basically, it's also going back to the coordinates, what Eric just explained. So in our example, we do not use coordinates. We have not used coordinates. In our example, the total station is the origin of our coordinate system, 0, 0, 0. And the backside point that Eric has specified earlier in the demonstration in the data receiver wizard, there was this field backside points, and he selected one of the 3 targets. And this is our control point. This is our backside point, and this basically established the orientation of our coordinate system.
Right.
Right. So this is a local coordinate system we have just created on the fly, so to say. Okay.
I didn't have time to measure in my living room, so we have to just use a local.
All right. So we have now answered quite some questions already. There are still plenty of them, but I think we cannot go through all of them right now. Maybe we still have time at the end to cover some more of those. I would like to go back now to my screen. So I will change the presenter again.
So did you get a?
Show my screen. Yes, I did. So
perfect.
Do you see the setup in one web interface again?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. So then let me jump back to this one here. Okay, so this was our demo on the setup M1 and on T4D, and I hope that we could give you a good understanding on the steps that are required to connect your total station to T4D using a setup M1. So here's just a summary of the steps we went through together, summarized on a slide here. So first of all, as you remember, I opened the web interface of the setup M1, and what I did in there, so I created a completely new fresh project. As next, I added 3 new targets. And so the only thing I did, I reviewed the round configuration. So I specified a round interval of 5 minutes, and then I started the monitoring process. So that's all I did on the setup M1 side of things. And Eric just ran through the required steps of Trimble 40 control, or within Trimble 40 control. So he first inserted 3 modules altogether. So first one, data receiver module, which does the connection again to the setup M1 or to the total station respectively. And the second module is the terrestrial engine real-time. where you back to this one question where you specify which data you would like to connect to. Like in our example, we only used one total station and one data receiver module. That's why we selected this one data receiver module in the terrestrial engine real time. And last but not least, there was also an integrity monitor module Eric inserted. So in the setup M1, in the data receiver properties, you can connect to the setup M1 project. In our example, it is called, or it was called, webinar demo. And on the T4D side, you also define the station setup, because only here we do the entire geodetic calculation. So this is possible in the data receiver side setup wizard. So this is pretty much all you need to do. And of course, I would really like to encourage you to try this out yourself. So if you do so, please note that we have just released or launched a new monitoring YouTube channel, and this channel contains a lot of helpful tutorial videos. The videos are really short, as you might see here on the slide, so they are, let's say, between 3 and 5 to 6 minutes, and each of them covers a specific topic. And there is, for example, a video available on how you can insert a SIM card to a setup M1. This is something, a prerequisite if you want to use a cellular connection, of course, something we have not covered in this webinar, but this is a video that is available in here. Another video you could watch is how you can register your setup M1 with IST Connect, also something we have not demonstrated in this video, because yeah, this is a straightforward process, and you can just watch this 3-minute video. You would need to connect to your local, to your Wi-Fi to connect to the M1 as an access point, etc. But this is all explained in this video. Bottom line is, I just want to highlight that there is a monitoring YouTube channel available. You can subscribe to it, and you can watch all the nice tutorial videos there. Yeah, so for any technical questions, go there. And if you are looking for T4D license, and also for a setup M1, because I assume you probably have a total station available, Trimble access, everything is available. T4D is something you can download, but you still need a license and a setup M1. And for this purpose, or regarding this, I would like to ask you to contact your Trimble distribution partner. So yeah, this is really all you need in terms of additional equipment, license, and then you're ready to go, and you can put your existing instrumentation into use. All right, so Michael, maybe it's a good point in time to raise the second poll question, because you can now answer the question if you would like to be contacted by one of our Trimble distribution partners, can share more information. So maybe you can just reply to this poll question. All right, so this slide is already familiar to you, and this is what we have covered today. So we have talked about the optical part, about total stations, and how you can connect it to Trimble 4D control using a setup M1. And so considering the time, maybe we can still address 1 or 2 questions. Let me see what is there. Eric, did you spot any question by chance which you would like to answer?
I was there was an awful lot of them that came in here. I'm just trying to sort out ones that, but they came in such an.
Thanks everybody for all the questions. There's really a lot of them, and we will get back to you for sure. But Eric, is there any question you would like to answer?
Just a simple one, because I know I mentioned there why we didn't use a temperature sensor, and somebody was asking actually why. Where was it? Where do you get your instrument temperature from? Is it measured from the M1 box? And actually, I can take the set off just off the thing here, and one of the cables which is actually attached contains a temperature sensor. and this is where the temperature then gets read to. Sorry, wrong way on the screen. So it actually is connected straight from here. So this is where we actually derive the temperature from. And there we go. Back up. Doesn't fall down. All right. There was one also about durability of the instrument. I guess it's aluminum itself.
Yeah. I can see a question which is a very interesting one. So this question is coming from Massimo Ugero. Thanks for that question. So the question is if or whether the data can be mixed and data total station and GNSS data. And the answer is yes, it can be mixed. So T4D, in T4D, you can also find a functionality, a feature that we call integrated survey engine. So you can really combine total station data with GNSS data and process this together. So this is also possible in T4D. Is possibly a topic for one of our next webinars. Okay, so there are some people saying there hello. That's also nice. Thank you very much. Eric, did you spot another question?
I was just looking at one question was asking if the SIM card reader in the setup M1 is a 4G, and yes, that is correct. They are 4G. What's that? Yep. No, this is the 4G units, the gray setup M1s.
Okay.
Let me see here. Then there was also the question if there was a possibility to get a site set up from the M1 directly, but I think that was a question that had come in and we sort of had moved on, and you had explained before you had the chance to explain that it's done in T4D itself. Yeah, sorry, there's a lot of questions here.
I have another one. I've just spotted one. This is coming from, oh, it's hard to spell this name. Owe-Bam-Mi-Yi-Dam-Milare. Sorry for if I might not have pronounced this correctly, but the question is, how can you set the alarm on T4D when a measure passes its threshold? So I guess, or I think Eric showed quickly the target integrity threshold. So we have a so-called, or let's say we have alarm functionality both in the back end and in the front end. So if it's about, for example, target integrity, so this is something you can configure on the T4D server side, and you can also use email as notification type. But we have basically a very advanced and much more powerful alarm capability features in the web application, and this is something we will further explore at a later stage. In a later webinar, I will come to that in a second. And I think there is another question which goes into the same direction. This question is coming from Adam Tyler, thanks for that. Can you give a glimpse of the T4D web user interface? So considering the time, Adam, I'm sorry, we need to postpone this to the next webinar or one of the next webinars, but there will be one for sure where we look at the web interface. And actually, I think I can give you an outlook on the webinar series now. And so this addresses your question again, Adam. So with the next webinar, yeah, maybe some words on the webinar series in general up front. So as of now, we will do a monitoring webinar every month on a monthly basis. And the webinar always takes place on the third Wednesday of the month. So this means the first one was today, this was the kickoff, and there will be a next one on the 20th of May. And during this webinar, we will do a continued session on the optical component on the total station data. But at this or during this webinar, we will more focus on the web application. And I think there you will also see the capabilities of the web application. In the June-July timeframe, we will focus on the other sensor types. So in June, we will look at the GNSS receivers, how you can connect to GNSS receivers again, what are the steps required on the T4D server side. And in July, it is all about geotechnical sensors. geotechnical sensors, as you can see here, a weather station, a piezometer, a crack meter, for example. What are the possibilities to get this information into T4D and what you can do with this information, with this data? And there will be another webinar in August. So during this webinar, we will fully focus on the web application. So the web application is full of a lot of functionalities, features. So we might look into how you can create a scheduled report, what possibilities you have to create an analysis, how would you define an alarm definition containing several alarm conditions, for example, project sensor management. So just to give you some idea, this will focus on the web application. And yeah, of course, I mean, I would be happy if we can also welcome you to one of the following webinar sessions. And yeah, I think with that, I would like to thank you, Eric, again for his help. Thanks, Eric. And of course, I would like to thank you, all of you, for joining this first webinar we had today. So I really hope you enjoyed the last hour and you feel like the time was well spent. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think with that, we reach the end. Again, all the open questions, we will get back to you as soon as possible. You will receive some message from us. Thank you very much. And yeah, hopefully see you in May, 20th of May. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Perfect. Thank you.